For centuries, humans have stared at the moon and felt something was watching back from the darkness. In recent years, strange signals, odd lights, and unexplained shadows have started appearing on its surface. Scientists call it unusual, skeptics call it nothing, but the data keeps getting stranger every single year. Tonight, we're diving into the mystery that has quietly unsettled astronomers, engineers, and space agencies around the world. Something is happening up there, and nobody in an official capacity seems ready to fully explain it yet. It started small, a flicker of light, where there should have been nothing but empty gray rock. Then came reports of temperature spikes in regions that should have stayed freezing cold for centuries. Radio telescopes began picking up faint bursts, patterns too clean to easily dismiss as random noise. Some engineers quietly admitted the readings didn't match anything they had ever recorded from the moon before. Others insisted it was equipment error, dust interference, or simple misreadings from aging monitoring stations. But the anomalies kept returning, month after month, almost as if something wanted to be noticed. Long before satellites, ancient civilizations already described strange lights dancing across the lunar surface at night. Babylonian astronomers recorded sudden brightness on the moon, and they couldn't explain with the tools they had. Medieval monks in England once wrote about a flash so bright it lit up the night sky. Modern scientists later suggested it might have been a massive impact, yet the description never quite matched. These flickers even earned a name, transient lunar phenomena, still debated by researchers today. Thousands of sightings have been logged, yet no consistent explanation has ever satisfied every expert involved. Some believe it's simply outgassing, ancient trapped gases escaping slowly through cracks in the surface. Others believe the moon is more active, more alive, than textbooks have ever been willing to admit. When Apollo astronauts orbited the moon, several described a strange, metallic smell they couldn't quite place. They also reported soft, humming sounds through their radios while flying over the far side. NASA attributed it to static, temperature shifts, or equipment quirks nobody bothered to investigate further.
Still, multiple astronauts across different missions describe nearly identical sensations, oddly consistent for pure coincidence.
Some photographs from those missions later showed unexplained shapes, shadows that didn't match known terrain. Enthusiasts zoomed into old NASA archives and found geometric shadows nobody could easily explain away. Officials called them lens flares, rock formations, or simple tricks of harsh, unfiltered sunlight. But the shapes appeared again in newer images, taken decades later by far more advanced cameras. That's when public curiosity turned into something closer to genuine, persistent, wide-scale fascination.
Independent researchers began comparing old and new lunar photographs, searching for anything official reports missed.
What they found didn't calm anyone down, it only deepened the sense that something was off. Certain craters seemed to shift slightly in shadow patterns that shouldn't change without ground movement.
Seismologists confirmed the moon does experience quakes, called moonquakes, more frequent than anyone previously assumed.
Some of these quakes originate from deep within, in regions scientists still can't fully map. That means the moon isn't the dead rock textbooks described throughout most of the 20th century. If something below the surface is shifting, the obvious question becomes, what exactly is causing it? Then, satellites began detecting unusual magnetic fluctuations concentrated around a handful of very specific regions. These magnetic pockets don't behave like normal lunar geology, prompting quiet concern among planetary scientists. One theory suggests ancient impacts embedded metallic material deep beneath the surface long ago. Another, more controversial theory suggests something artificial might be buried beneath that same exact spot. Most scientists reject that idea publicly, yet privately, some admit the readings are hard to explain. In 2009, an unmanned probe deliberately crashed into the moon to study the debris. The resulting plume revealed water ice, an incredible discovery scientists hadn't expected to confirm so easily. But buried within that data were trace chemical signatures nobody could immediately identify or categorize. Some researchers called it contamination. Others called it evidence of something genuinely unexpected happening below. Years later, a similar mission found comparable readings in an entirely different, unrelated lunar region. Two separate missions, decades apart, somehow stumbling onto strangely similar chemical mysteries, seemed too coincidental. Meanwhile, private companies began racing to return to the moon, chasing resources and quiet ambition. Their proposed landing zones oddly overlapped, with several of the regions flagged as anomalous. Officials denied any connection, insisting the sites were chosen purely for resource potential and terrain. Still, online communities noticed the pattern immediately and refused to simply let it go unquestioned. Then came the leaked internal memo, unverified, but detailed enough to spark massive public attention. It referenced an unnamed structure, described only as non-natural, discovered during a routine survey mission. The agency involved denied the memo's authenticity, calling it fabricated and completely without scientific merit. Yet the language used matched internal formatting so closely that skepticism didn't fully disappear. Independent journalists tried tracing its origin, hitting dead ends at every single turn they took. Whoever wrote it either understood classified terminology perfectly, or simply got remarkably lucky guessing details. Around the same time, several countries quietly increased funding toward unmanned lunar surveillance missions. Publicly, they cited resource mapping and scientific curiosity as the primary reasons behind the increase. Privately, insiders suggested urgency, an unspoken race to understand something before anyone else could. Radio astronomers, unrelated to any government program, then detected a repeating signal from lunar orbit. It wasn't random. It followed a rhythmic pattern that repeated with unsettling mathematical precision. Natural phenomena rarely produce patterns that consistent, across such extended periods of time. The signal eventually stopped, disappearing as suddenly as it had first appeared without warning. No official statement addressed it directly, leaving independent researchers to speculate about its true origin. Some suggested it was simply interference bouncing off satellites already orbiting the moon quietly. Others weren't convinced, noting the frequency didn't match any known satellite currently in operation. Whatever it was, it reignited old questions nobody had ever managed to fully answer before. Could the moon be hiding something ancient? Something humanity simply hasn't been equipped to understand yet? Or is this simply the natural result of studying something so old with modern, impatient curiosity? Either way, agencies suddenly became far less willing to publicly discuss lunar anomalies at all. Funding for anomaly research quietly shifted labels, buried under vague terms like environmental assessment studies. Scientists who once spoke openly about strange readings became noticeably more cautious in public interviews.
Some declined interviews entirely, citing non-disclosure agreements tied to newly classified research partnerships.
That silence spoke louder than any leaked memo ever could to an already curious public. Meanwhile, amateur astronomers kept watching, kept recording, refusing to let official silence end their curiosity. Backyard telescopes captured brief flashes that matched historical transient lunar phenomena almost perfectly in pattern. Crowdsourced footage from different continents, recorded independently, sometimes showed activity within minutes of each other. Statisticians reviewing the footage noted the timing correlation was unlikely to happen purely by chance. Something, somewhere, seemed to be triggering these events on a schedule nobody had discovered yet. Was it tidal stress, solar activity, or something entirely outside current scientific understanding of the moon? Researchers proposed dozens of natural explanations, yet none accounted for every single recorded anomaly. That gap between explanation and evidence is exactly where public imagination naturally begins to grow. Documentary filmmakers began investigating, interviewing retired engineers who had quietly left the space industry. A few agreed to speak anonymously, describing internal briefings they were told never to repeat. One described a photograph shown briefly in a meeting, then immediately locked away in secure storage. He said it showed geometry too symmetrical to be natural, though he couldn't recall exact details. Memory fades, and skeptics rightly point out that stories evolve every time they're retold publicly. Still, multiple independent sources described strikingly similar experiences, despite never having met one another. Coincidence, coordinated fabrication, or fragments of an unofficial truth slowly leaking through cautious human memory. The public was left to decide which explanation felt more plausible than the others available. Then, newly declassified documents from an older lunar mission resurfaced after decades sealed in archives. They described unexpected readings, quickly dismissed at the time as probable instrument malfunction. Reviewed today with modern analysis tools, those same readings suddenly appeared far more difficult to dismiss. Historians noted the original dismissal happened remarkably fast, faster than typical scientific review usually allows.
Fast dismissals sometimes mean confidence, but they can also mean deliberate effort to avoid deeper questions.
Nobody could definitively prove which motivation applied here, and that ambiguity kept the mystery alive. Meanwhile, new lunar missions from multiple countries began quietly avoiding public live streams during specific landing phases. Officials cited bandwidth limitations and technical complexity as reasons for the sudden lack of transparency. Critics found that explanation unconvincing, given how routine live broadcasts had become in previous years. Every gap in transparency, however small, added another thread to an already tangled public narrative. Then came satellite imagery showing what appeared to be fresh, unexplained markings near a known anomaly. The markings weren't there in earlier images taken just months before the newer capture. Geologists proposed micrometeorite impacts, though the pattern looked oddly deliberate rather than randomly scattered. Enhanced imaging revealed straight lines intersecting at consistent angles across a surprisingly wide area. Nature rarely produces straight lines, and when it does, they rarely intersect with such precision. Officials again declined detailed comment, describing it only as an area of continued scientific interest. That phrase, continued scientific interest, quickly became a running joke among frustrated online researchers. If it was nothing, why did every follow-up question receive the exact same careful, guarded answer? Meanwhile, private aerospace companies announced ambitious plans for permanent lunar bases within the coming decade. Their proposed locations again overlapped with regions flagged repeatedly throughout years of anomaly reports. Company representatives insisted the overlap was purely practical, tied to sunlight, minerals, and terrain stability. Skeptics found it remarkable how often practicality happened to align with the strangest known coordinates. Retired military personnel, speaking off record, hinted at classified interest predating public space race announcements.
They wouldn't confirm specifics, only that curiosity about the moon extended beyond scientific ambition.
That vague admission, though unofficial, added real weight to years of speculative online discussion. If true, it meant governments had suspected something for decades before ever telling their citizens. If false, it was simply another rumor feeding an already hungry, imagination-driven online audience. Either way, public trust in official lunar narratives continued eroding at a steady, noticeable pace.
Then, an amateur radio operator intercepted a fragment of encrypted communication referencing lunar coordinates directly.
He couldn't decode it fully, but he shared the fragment publicly before quickly deleting his accounts.
Screenshots survived, spreading rapidly across forums dedicated to space anomalies and unexplained phenomena.
Cryptographers who examined it disagreed on its authenticity, some calling it convincing, others calling it staged.
The operator never resurfaced publicly again, adding one more unanswered question to an already long list. Was he silenced, embarrassed, or simply overwhelmed by unwanted attention from strangers online? Nobody could say for certain, and that uncertainty became, itself, part of the growing legend. Meanwhile, new lunar samples returned from a recent mission showed isotopic ratios slightly outside expected ranges. Scientists called it a minor anomaly, likely explained by contamination during the sample return journey. Others noted similar minor anomalies had appeared, unexplained, in nearly every previous sample return mission. A pattern of minor anomalies, repeated often enough, eventually stops feeling entirely minor to careful observers.
Perhaps the moon simply holds secrets ordinary science haven't yet developed the tools to fully read. Or perhaps something else entirely is quietly waiting there, patient, undisturbed, for millions of years.
Space agencies now plan crewed missions returning humans to the lunar surface within the next few years. Astronauts training for these missions have reportedly received briefings unusually focused on unexplained surface features.
Officials describe this as standard preparation, ensuring astronauts recognize unfamiliar terrain during unpredictable surface operations. Yet former engineers suggest the briefings go further, addressing scenarios rarely discussed in earlier missions. If true, agencies may be preparing for possibilities they still refuse to acknowledge publicly today. Meanwhile, international cooperation on lunar research has quietly increased, despite ongoing political tension elsewhere. Shared curiosity, or shared concern, seems to be pulling rival space programs toward unexpected cooperation.
Some analysts suggest this cooperation only makes sense if something genuinely significant was actually discovered. Others argue it's simply efficient science, pooling resources for missions too expensive to attempt alone. Both explanations remain plausible, and neither one fully satisfies audiences hungry for a definitive answer. As new missions approach, public anticipation continues building around what astronauts might eventually encounter firsthand. Will they find natural geology, misunderstood for decades, finally explained through careful modern observation? Or will they find something else? Something that finally forces a long overdue public conversation? History suggests humanity often resists uncomfortable truths until evidence becomes simply impossible to ignore. The moon, patient and silent, has kept its secrets through centuries of human curiosity already. Whatever waits there has apparently decided the timing of its own reveal, not humanity's schedule. Every flash, every signal, every anomaly might simply be pieces of a much larger picture. A picture we still don't have enough information to properly assemble or fully understand yet. Maybe that's the real mystery. Not what's happening,
but why we still can't clearly see it.
Perhaps future missions will finally deliver undeniable answers, ending decades of speculation once and for all.
Or perhaps they'll simply deepen the mystery, adding new questions to an already long list. Either outcome guarantees one thing: humanity's fascination with the moon isn't fading anytime soon.
We've walked on it, studied it, mapped nearly every visible inch of its ancient surface. Yet something about it still feels unfinished, like a story missing its final, crucial chapter.
Maybe the moon isn't hiding something from us. Maybe it's simply waiting for us patiently. Waiting for the right technology, the right mission, or the right moment to finally understand. Until then, every strange light and unexplained signal keeps that ancient curiosity burning brightly. So look up tonight, really look, and ask yourself what exactly you're staring back at. Because something strange really might be happening on the moon, and we're only just beginning to notice.